This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about the plans for the future of PlayStation games on PC versus console, new PlayStation games and hardware being confirmed for PC with a catch, the potential for new Xbox hardware being revealed at the upcoming showcase, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 35. I am your host, the man who, if he were a handheld PC, would be the ugly, bulky Steam Deck OLED, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who would rather emulate the PS4 version of Bloodborne at 30 FPS than sign up for a PlayStation Network account to play it on PC, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been something. It's been very interesting, and I guess I'll actually work my way backwards to recap. So today, I got home late from work. Well, I got home late, but that's just because I was having difficulties trying to get home. Fortunately, I was able to get home at a decent time, and also when I was leaving work, it was raining heavily, but by the time I got off my train and was walking back home, it had cleared up a good portion of the time, so thank God for that. But I later, when I got home, realized that right in the area I was walking home in, there had actually been a tornado warning, and there also had been a funnel cloud that was spotted nearby. So I had no clue that it had happened until I got home. And then even later on this evening, there were 5 different tornado warnings going off, for my entire state. Like 2 were, there was one north of my county, there were several below my county, and there were others out to the east, and it was a very interesting half hour, and this was like probably about an hour or so ago that all this had been happening. Wow. Yeah, and I mean, it sort of made sense because that's why I couldn't use my internet when I was getting home, or my home, because I was gonna contact you, I was gonna be late, but that was the reason why. It was because of the interference from the storm. But fortunately, so far, everything seems to be safe. I know there were some sightings going on, but I know that one potential warning turned out to be nothing. But I know there was one tornado that actually did touch down somewhere out there. So that's what's happened there. But I guess now moving back further, for work, I'm now starting this new thing, I guess, responsibility where I'm assisting one of the managers with checking some information. So I'll be doing that starting out next week while she's on vacation, but then I guess moving from there on, I'll slowly adjust and take over that responsibility there. So that's interesting. Oh, and one last thing I guess I'll say is I happened to see not one, but 2 Cybertrucks, which is very odd. I saw one when I was the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And then I just happened to see another one going by, and I feel like it's uglier in person than it is in pictures. So definitely wait for the HD textures to come in with that. But all in all, that's been my week.
Yeah, I didn't realize you guys got tornado stuff that far up north. Or that far east,
it's interesting because it's been a bit rare, or at least it was really rare when I was younger. But then probably around, probably around the mid to early 2010s, we started to get more tornado activity going on, and we didn't necessarily get any. We didn't get a whole lot of confirmed tornadoes, but we got more tornado watches and maybe an occasional warning, but there weren't any actual tornadoes that formed.
Gotcha.
But we have been getting some more here and there. But yeah, we definitely it's I'd say, as by and large, this isn't really normal for us to get this many, or at least get a whole lot of tornadoes, if any.
Yeah, crazy. Well, I'm glad that you and everyone else are okay. So that's definitely a good thing. As for my week, kind of a mixed bag in terms of like busyness versus non-busyness. We had our first church service at our new building. Thankfully, everything went really smoothly with the live stream. Didn't have any real issues. I mean, there's still some stuff we need to kind of like, I need to dial in, figuring out some things with like the camera focus and whatnot, because it's just a completely different setup in terms of like where I have things set up, because the sanctuary is laid out a lot differently. It's a lot bigger and all of that, but we didn't have any issues with the audio, and overall video was good too. So hey, it's a huge win over the last two buildings we were in where we had issues for a while. So very pleased with that. Of course, you and I did that reaction to the PlayStation State of Play, and I can't remember if I actually remembered to unlist it, because it was one of those that, since for some reason your audio wasn't coming through, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have that up with, you not, no one able to hear you. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I did unlist it. I haven't gotten around to trying to resync everything. I haven't decided if I'm actually going to bother with it, because I usually don't really get any views on those anyway. But we'll see. But then otherwise, it's just been pretty much, normal stuff. Haven't been getting much sleep, which is annoying. But it's more just because this is the week where I have to get up early 4 out of 5 days, and so it's getting up at 4 days, 4 out of 5 days this week, and not doing the best about getting to bed early. So I'm typically still getting to bed around 10, and still takes me a little bit to fall asleep. So whatever, it is what it is. But yeah, that's pretty much my week as far as that goes. Oh, something I did do. I haven't decided if I'm going to turn part of this into my recipe for my cooking channel, but I did start up the brining process for some pastrami. So I'm making some beef pastrami, and because I just had the inspiration and had it available, I decided to do some with pork loin as well. So I'm gonna try doing both of those, and they're both brining. It's supposed to brine for like, I think 7 to 10 days, something like that. And after that's had a chance to fully brine, then I smoke it. And I'm looking forward to both, because I've never made pastrami at all. And the idea of doing it with pork loin, I really like the idea, because pork loin, the pork loin roast is like this big round thing, so it's like perfect for going through a meat slicer. So that just should be really interesting. Plus, then it's a little leaner, so that means it's lower calorie, and just I think it'll be good. Because like I grew up with turkey pastrami. That was what my parents would buy more often than not if they bought pastrami, and I always liked it. But I've never tried making my own, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, that's basically my week in a nutshell from what I can think of.
Nice. Did you move into a new building because you needed like more space, or
yes, that's part of it.
Something else?
So basically, it was because we were pretty much full up. Because we've grown enough to where we've consistently had a full house. Around 100 people. That's about how much we could fit in the sanctuary we're in. but it's also because we were looking for something that's a little more permanent, because what we had been doing was we were just renting from a college, a ministry that's at one of the local colleges, and they really only use it like one night a week, sometimes occasionally other nights, but because of that we would always have to set up and tear down on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights when we would have our Wednesday night thing. And so it's like, okay, it was kind of a hassle going back and forth. There was some of their stuff was being used, some of our stuff, and so it was just kind of a mixed bag across the board. So now we have our own building that we're leasing, that it actually at one point was a church, but it hasn't been a church in many years. It's just been basically vacant. And so we're leasing that, and it's a big building. It's like, I want to say 20,000 square feet or something like that. Pretty large. I mean, I don't know what the other one was, but the other one we just were a lot more limited on what we had to work with. And this one has a lot of space. It's also got a lot of like random furniture and stuff throughout it, and it's kind of a maze in there. It's interesting from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, basically all we've done so far is they've done work on the outside, and then the sanctuary and the foyer, and that's about it. Everything else is just going to be kind of a work in progress as they're able to work on it. But I think that the building has a lot of potential to be a really good one, and it's a better location. It's further away, but it's also a bit more, it's not in quite as busy of an area, so it just feels a little safer from that standpoint, especially for like kids running around and everything. And it's got, it has more room in the building itself, has a much bigger parking lot, because we were definitely full up most Sundays at the other place, and just across the board it seems like it's going to work out really well for us. And so we have like all of our own equipment now, not borrowing anything, and everything's set up to where it's more permanent. It's nice.
Yeah, that's very good. It's very good.
All right, so what have you been playing this past week?
Alright, so I played some more Ghost of Tsushima, and before I get into just like some other stuff, general stuff, I went ahead and I did try playing it on my Steam Deck.
Okay.
I used the settings you gave me, and I was able to get that 45. In fact, I even, here and there, even got a little higher to like, because I didn't lock the frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get up to 48, and I decided, I wonder if I can adjust things and see if I can push it further to get a better frame rate. And I was able to get about 52-ish, 55, but unfortunately there were so many drops that it was not, it wasn't pleasant in that regard. And unfortunately also, even while I was trying to keep it closer to 45, I feel like the combat really, it's not that really messed me up, but it didn't feel comfortable enough.
Gotcha.
Like, for example, for trying to do parries, my success rate for doing perfect parries was a whole lot lower than when I was playing it on my computer. So overall, I'm not certain. I'll probably go back and try to see if I can find that one guide that said it could get a pretty much near consistent 60 FPS. I'll see what I have to do for that. I'll probably try and see how that goes, and if it works, I might do that more. But just as far as right now, I'll just stick with playing it on my PC. But as far as like what I've been doing in there, I've primarily just still exploring around the island, or at least the second part of the island that you have access to, just to like do some side quest stuff, and also just to fill out the map and get some new waypoints where I can fast travel to.
Right.
So that's what I've been doing there for that. But yeah, still good stuff there. I don't have any footage for this, but I played a little bit more of Spider-Man just to do some just to knock out some side quests and stuff, and primarily I was just doing that as a way to kill some time while I was waiting for a call to come in. So not much really there. I did play, what was it? Oh yeah, I played I almost said Elder Ring, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Primarily it was because I was trying to help a friend out with a problem. He said that he had been having an issue where the game kept freezing, and he said he thinks it's probably because of some mods he downloaded for another game, and he said that the game kept freezing whenever he left it. So I was playing Skyrim. I tried to experiment and see if leaving it running idle paused did anything, but nothing seemed to impact me. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on his end, but I still was playing through that for a while. It's been a long time since I've played that game, and so I really did not remember what I was doing at the time or where I was supposed to go. But I completed a couple quests. I went on a boat and traveled to Morrowind, or at least I think I went to Morrowind.
Mm-hmm.
I started a quest, and there were these creatures where apparently, or at least they seemed like they were so much more they were much more higher level than I was, and it was a pain trying to deal with them. And then I was trying to help out the soldiers of that area to take them down, and I think I might have actually hit one of them, because after we defeated them, I was arrested. So I paid my fine because I was not going to spend time in jail. But I went on my way after that, and I'll see if I get back into playing that some more or not. Played some more Stardew Valley with friends. We pretty much have almost leveled up all of our skill trees. My one friend, he's leveled up everything. I'm close to leveling up everything. I just have one more skill. I think it's fishing that I have to finish leveling up, and I'll have all my skill tree stats maxed out. And then my other friend, he still has 2 more skill trees to complete. But we're still finishing that up, and we just went through our one of the festivals, the Flower Dance Festival. So that was I mean, nothing much happened there, but it was still a pretty good event there. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I've been playing this past week.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, so with Ghost, I totally understand, 45 does not feel as good as 60. I definitely agree with that. It's one of those things where, at least for me, the way it ended up working out is that, there are certain situations where I definitely would not want to be playing at 45, particularly some of the harder fights. But in general, I still feel like, at least for doing most things, 45 works just fine, and it still feels way better than 30. I hope you at least recognize that it is way better than 30.
Oh, yeah.
So there's at least that. But yeah, I still understand that, and I appreciate you trying it out. Just, getting a good idea. But yeah, if you're able to figure out that 60, let me know, because I'm curious about that. I'm super skeptical about it actually being any good at 60. Well, I should say, on the Steam Deck, any good at 60. Obviously, it's much better at 60 plus on PC, but yeah. Cool. So stuff I've been playing. Some of the things I don't have footage for, just because it'll just be briefly mentioning them. But of course, I'm continuing to play through Lego Harry Potter and Lego Pirates of the Caribbean with my boys. Slowly working through those, and we also played some more Paper Mario Mario Party Superstars. So we played a bit of that, the 3 of us. And so, that's just good times playing with my boys, doing all that. I ended up going ahead and playing The Pedestrian. And what I have here is just literally just the trailer rather than actual gameplay footage, because I played it entirely on my Steam Deck. And I played through it. I started it a little bit on Friday, and then I finished it on Saturday. So, 100% did everything, got all achievements. And yeah, it's a fantastic game. I really, really enjoyed it. It's 90 frames per second. I can't remember if there's I think I didn't mess with the settings at all. But yeah, it's it runs perfectly on the Steam Deck. So there was only one puzzle where I actually had to look up a solution, and that was near the end. and otherwise I did it. I was able to figure everything out. But yeah, it's an excellent puzzle game. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's super great. But then additionally, of course, I played some more of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and I was able to figure out the timing on those jumps and blocks. I still don't have it perfect, but I've gotten a lot better at it. And one of the things that helped the most when playing on my living room TV, because my kids specifically wanted to watch me play that, was just changing the TV over to gaming mode, and then the button, the response, it was much more responsive, so it was very helpful from that standpoint. But yeah, I definitely really enjoy that game. I still wish it was 60, and I know that there are ways to mod it to be 60 if you have a modded Switch, but I don't know how easily you can do it with the Switch OLED. So I haven't really tried doing it. I think I looked up a video that said that like the thumbnail made it look like it was how to mod the Switch OLED, but then when you actually get into the video, it's like, oh, this isn't the OLED, this is the original Switch. So they put the white Joy-Cons on the original Switch, and it's like I could tell as soon as I saw the bezel on, it's like, oh, this is not the OLED, which is unfortunate. But I haven't decided if I'm going to try to do anything like that. It's not absolutely necessary. It would be nice because it just feels better at 60, but it's not 100% necessary. But yeah, apart from that, I also started doing some of my recording for the next comparison that I'm doing, which is for Diablo 3. I played some Diablo 3. I played it on the Switch. That's all I had a chance to record this time around. One of the things that I wanted to do was, I know that the Switch version has some exclusive armor sets, specifically so that you can dress up your character as Ganondorf. And I was under the impression, which appears to have been the wrong impression, that the only way to wear the Ganondorf armor is to play as a Necromancer. So I decided, well, I haven't played as a Necromancer anyway, so might as well play as Necromancer. And I couldn't figure out how to get the armor set. I thought that it was something that, it would just unlock after I did a little bit. No. And so I named my character Ganondorf, was planning to wear that armor set, got all the way through the thing, couldn't find it, and then I found out after the fact that it was something I could have gotten really, really early on, just from my stash. And I mean, you have to pay for it because it's basically just it's just like a transmog cosmetic. You have to pay to you have to pay your in-game money in order to apply that to your armor. And of course I already had plenty of money because I'd played through previously as other characters, so I had more than enough money to be able to do that. But of course I didn't figure it out until after I recorded, so oh well. I named my character Ganondorf, and I didn't actually get to play as Ganondorf, which is a shame. But anyway, the game, it doesn't look the best on the Switch, but it runs very well. It runs at 60. I'm pretty sure it's pretty much a locked 60. Unlike the Steam Deck version, it actually has full button and joystick controls. So that's something that is absent entirely from the PC version. There is no support for controllers. And so while I can use most of the buttons on the Steam Deck, if I treat them as keys when it comes to movement, you have to use the touchpad. Because if you try using the joystick, it basically just moves it like it's a mouse cursor and doesn't actually move the character unless you click. So, but I did play a little bit on the Steam Deck as well, just mostly to try and familiarize myself with how it would control, and also to be able to set up the buttons properly so that when I do the controls, I'm not fiddling around, or rather when I do the recording, I'm not fiddling around with the controls trying to figure out how to set it up. So but then I also of course played some Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm still on Iki Island, and I played a mix of playing on Steam Deck and on my PC, and so I had kind of a mixed experience with playing on the Steam Deck today. Most of the time it was fine. 45, pretty consistent 45, very few drops, nothing drastic. But when the dynamic resolution kicked in a bit today, during like some of the scenes when there was like it was rainy and there was a bunch of enemies, it definitely got pretty blurry. It was not good from that standpoint. I mean, I suffered through that aspect, and it still was mostly fine, but I definitely had a couple of issues here and there, and it's not going to be my primary way to play the game for sure. But still a heck of a lot better than like how Horizon Forbidden West performs on the Steam Deck. And for some basic stuff, it's fine. I was able to do some bigger fights without too much difficulty. There's one thing that you can do on Iki Island, and this isn't a spoiler, but there's a location you do where you can do like a series of fights, and you're just doing it with a wooden sword. And most of them are like, okay, there's, each of these people has different fighting styles, so there's, different nuances and quirks you have to figure out with each person you're fighting. But one of them in particular, it was I mean, I like all the guides I looked at, they said, oh, this is an easy fight. And it wasn't like hard, but it was technically the hardest one of the fights, because the person you're fighting, so the first basically how these matches work is it's whoever gets 5 hits on the other person first. So it's you get a hit and then they stop, you both have to wait a second, and then you can fight again and try for another hit. So this person that you're fighting, the first 3 times, I mean, basically she starts off, she's very aggressive, and she'll go towards you. You can pretty easily parry her attack and then knock her out. And then hit her. But then after you've hit her 3 times, then she becomes more defensive and she doesn't attack you unless you attack her first. And if you don't do the timing correctly, which is I had more issues with, I think I just kept holding block instead of actually getting the parry timing correct, then it's much easier to get hit by her during those windows, and then you can end up losing. And so I lost to her more than any other person. Even the very last, like the quote-unquote boss of the whole thing was much easier. I think it took me like 3, maybe 4 tries to beat him, and it took like 10 tries to beat the chick, which is really annoying. So, but anyway, so I did some of that, and I'm actually now at the point of facing the boss, like the actual boss of Iki Island. I already did like one of the optional fights where you get like a special set of armor. And the set of armor is interesting because what it does is it makes it so that you have that when you do a perfect parry, you actually get to do 2 counterattacks, which is pretty cool. But the downside is that you lose your parry, your regular parry. You can only do a perfect parry. So, and it works same with, like, I think with the dodge as well. Well, not exactly, but if you do the perfect parry or perfect dodge, then you can do 2 counterattacks. Now, I don't think I've actually unlocked the perfect dodge yet, if I remember correctly. Because I think that's like one of the very last things that you can unlock in that tree. But with the perfect parry, it's like, okay, when I get it, it's great, but I only get it like maybe a quarter of the time at best. Or I should say, it's probably like a quarter of the times that I get a parry, it's the perfect parry. And the rest of the time, it's just, a regular parry. But I don't like losing my regular parry because that can oftentimes mean the difference between being alive and being dead. So, yeah. But anyway, so I fought the guy and got that set of armor, but then now I'm on the last boss of Iki Island, which, I mean, yes, it's not the last thing I have to do there, but it's the last of the story mission bosses. And she is really hard. She is definitely harder than Kublai Khan, if I remember correctly, because obviously it's been several years since I faced him. But, you face him as the last boss of the main campaign. Basically. And, I mean, I know that he took a few tries, but he definitely wasn't one of the hardest ones that I faced. And she is just way harder. So I was trying to beat her before I put the kids to bed, and that's part of why I ended up being a little later tonight, was because I was doing that up until like 8:15 almost. And so yeah, I definitely played longer than I should have, but I kept trying, wasn't beating her, so I finally said, okay, I'm just gonna exit out, and I don't know if when I start the game back up, if it will take me back into that fight, or if it'll take me back to the beginning of the mission. I'm hoping it's just the fight, because I'm sure I can beat her. I just need to work on some of we're making sure that I actually properly dodge and parry at the times I need to. That's really the biggest issue with that. But the very last game that I've been playing is Destiny 2. So I played a bit before the expansion dropped, and then the expansion dropped yesterday. That is on Tuesday, and I played through a decent chunk of the first story mission for the expansion, and I'm playing through on the highest difficulty that's available, which is Legendary. And the one thing that's a problem is, at least yesterday, I think they basically fixed the issues today, but yesterday there were lots of connection issues with their servers, and so I got like a good chunk of the way through the mission, and then the game just booted me out, and I couldn't get back in at all. And so I ended up just not even bothering playing anymore last night, and played Ghost of Tsushima instead. But then I got to play a little bit more today, and I didn't actually get very far. I basically just got to the next like big checkpoint, essentially, and yeah, that was about the extent of what I was able to do. So I haven't had a chance at all to experience the new subclass properly. It's basically just kind of like what they've been doing every time they've introduced a new major subclass in the expansions. You'll get like a little taste of what it's like throughout the campaign, like, but you don't fully unlock it right away. You don't fully unlock it until after the campaign's done. So yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to use like any abilities specifically tied to that, or any of the customization and all that. It's just basically like, okay, there's certain enemies that in order to take them out, you have to activate Prismatic, and it basically just lets you take them out, and that's about it. I mean, it just basically lets you break their shields so that you can take them out. So yeah, I haven't really. That's about all I've really been able to do with that so far. It's too early to judge much. I will say one thing that's really cool is that there's a bunch of guns that they previously had sunset that were basically, they got stuck at the power cap that they were at before they sunset them. So, and then every season when they continued them, they would put them at the minimum power cap for that season, which last season was 1600. This season is 1900 is the minimum. But what they did is they unsunset all those weapons. So a bunch of people had previously like just deleted all their weapons that have been sunset for like 2-3 years, because it's like there wasn't really any use for them. You know, they weren't powerful enough to use in any current activities. The only thing that they were really useful for was like maybe if you wanted to take them into PvP, because there's no power cap for the I mean, it's not power cap. There's no like power doesn't make a difference, so you can use whatever you want in there. But I had just been holding on to them because I had a hard time letting go, and then of course this season they said we're gonna get rid of the sunsetting, so I have access to some of my old guns that I really liked, and I mean, I'm probably not gonna like use them exclusively or anything, but it's still just kind of cool being able to use them.
Okay. So I actually have a couple questions for you. So with the Ganondorf armor set, so could you actually use that with any class then, since it was not how you expected?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay.
It's just certain. I mean, it only interacts with certain armor pieces, but or rather, when I say certain armor pieces, it's like you have the arms that go with the armor. The legs that go with the legs, chest that goes with the chest, and so on and so forth. You have to have a helmet in order to wear Ganondorf's face. So.
And with the armor set for Ghost, can you still just do normal blocking, or do you lose that ability as well?
You can still block, yes, but
okay.
I always rely on parrying. I never even bother trying to block. So
I understand that. I was just curious to know what options were still going to be available.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of my mug?
Is that the pre-order one that came?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I pre-ordered my original plan was to get the collector's edition at Best Buy, but because I was under the impression that they would have extras that I could get the day of, because I wasn't able to pre-order online, and they did not actually have any there. So, since it was the same day, I was able to pre-order the Walmart ones that I could get the mug. And it's like, well, the mug is more practical for me anyway, because I drink coffee all the time. So, although this is a replacement because I broke I can't remember. It might have been. I think one of the cats knocked it off the counter and it broke. So I found one on eBay and it wasn't terribly expensive, and so I just got a replacement. For those who are listening, I have a Metroid Dread mug, which was for pre-ordering with Walmart. But yeah. All right. Anything else before we start talking the news?
No, sir.
All right, so as we mentioned before, so Sony recently did an interview, Hermen Hulst did an interview. I think it was both Hermen Hulst and I can't remember the other new CEO's name. It's on the tip of my brain. But anyway, while we're thinking about that, so they did an interview talking about what their plans are for PlayStation going forward. One of the main things that they said is, as they have previously stated, that their intention is for the live service games, they will be day and date, PC and PS5 or whatever the PlayStation console happens to be. And then for their single player tentpole franchises, they're going to do console first and then bring them to PC later. Now, of course, some people, particularly some articles, because of the fact that they have said what they said, have said that there's currently no plan, that there's no plans to bring them day and date to PC. They didn't actually say that. They just said that this is what we're doing right now. So technically, currently there are no plans, because that's not, or at least currently that's not what they're doing. But whether or not there's plans in the future, it's probably one of those things where they just didn't say it because they didn't want to, if they have to change things in the future, there's no reason for them to say one thing and then change their minds later on and get accused of lying. But that's less the relevant part here, because regardless of whether they do day and date eventually or not, their idea here is that releasing their first-party, single-player, story-driven tentpole franchises, as they call them, doing them first on console, the idea is they hope that people who play the games on PC will perhaps be interested in checking out the sequels on PlayStation, getting a PlayStation in order to play the sequels. But, of course, this is a strategy that's already pretty much kind of been proven that it's not really realistic. Particularly when you consider the fact that there are plenty of... when you consider the fact that the PC versions are always the better versions of the games. Now, I know that there may be the occasional person on PC who will decide that they're going to buy a PS5 or whatever in order to play the sequel sooner, because they just really want to play it. They don't want to wait. But that's not necessarily representative of the vast majority of PC gamers. And as much as some people would say that that because some PC gamers have PCs that are weaker than the PlayStation 5, that they might be incentivized to grab the PS5 or the PS5 Pro if that ends up being a thing. Even though some people, even though they assume that people might be more interested in getting a PS5 or PS5 Pro because of potentially those being more powerful than the PC they have, they fail to acknowledge that people who game on PC, it's not just because of the power, because of the graphics. It's because of the freedom. It's because of the just sometimes it's restrictions within their country that they can't easily do consoles because of various import fees and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of different potential reasons why people choose to game on PC over consoles. And of course, once again, the PC versions that come out, even though they come out a year, 2 years, in some cases, because of where we are right now, 4 years or more later, they're going to be better versions of those games. So, anyway, all that being said, that's just kind of like a basic summary of what they said versus what things are, and that's not necessarily me giving a whole lot of commentary, even though it might have come across that way. So, your thoughts on all of this?
It's definitely something. I mean, I can understand the statement of saying that we have no plans of making these day and date on PC. I can understand the statement, and that's what it is. Things might change in the future. However, the reasoning behind it is completely baffling to me, because how can you say that these are games that we aren't putting on PC because we want to see if PC gamers buy it on PlayStation, when when you're pretty much saying that the games are going to be coming to PC anyway? So why do you think that PC gamers would not wait to play these games? Because here's the thing, PC gamers essentially were waiting for these games before we were pretty much actually even before then, before these games were even coming to PC in the first place, when they were just completely PlayStation exclusive. PC gamers weren't necessarily rushing out to buy a PlayStation to play those games. But now that the games are coming over, and we pretty much know that they're coming over from PlayStation, even if it's a year or more so, why would we all of a sudden stop waiting when we've been pretty much waiting the entire time? I mean, that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if I know a game's gonna be coming over, I'm not gonna go out and spend $500 for a platform I'm not interested in just to play one game, or even a couple games if they're, just PlayStation exclusives. That doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, Square learned this lesson themselves before with having games exclusively, and sure, it's not necessarily the same thing, but actually in one sense it kind of is even worse, is the fact that they had their games exclusively on the Epic Games Store, and PC gamers waited for the Steam ports with Final Fantasy VII Remake. The PC gamers were waiting, and then when it came over, then they bought it in droves. Kingdom Hearts, people waited a long time for that, and now that's coming over, people are saying it's finally coming to PC.
Yeah.
It hasn't been on PC before. So, and I mean, and even to technically borrow the argument that it's free, like, it's free to make an account on Epic Games, and people weren't gonna, buy the games there.
Right.
What makes them think they'd spend $500 to play these games?
Yeah.
Again, like, that's the part that doesn't make sense to me as to why they think that's just gonna incentivize people. Sure, if you provide the older games and say, well, because they're playing the older games, they'll probably be tempted to buy the newest entry on the PlayStation 5. And sure, some people will probably buy it. Some people probably do that, especially for those who have both a PC and a PS5. There will be people who do that. But the majority of people aren't going to do that. If they're already, especially if they're just mainly or mostly PC gamers, I highly doubt they're going to go ahead and buy a PlayStation 5 just to play a handful of games. I mean, personally for me, this was back when I was on console, like, if I was going to get a new console, I needed to have a justification for buying it. So I would say I want to have at least 20 titles for a console that justifies me buying it. Like, for example, I didn't end up doing this, but at the time I was interested in getting a PlayStation 4, and I was like, all right, if I can name 20 games that I would play on a PlayStation 4, I will consider buying it. I'll try saving up money and I can get it. So it took me a while, but I made a list of 20 games, and I was like, all right, so now that I have a list, I feel comfortable with actually going ahead and saving up for one. But yeah, so like, I feel like for a lot of people, spending that much money for just a couple of games is not worth it. I mean, you're essentially more. It's just not worth it. And then even depending on the game you're buying, it's gonna require PSN as well. So if you're buying a PlayStation 5 and you're buying this one exclusive or two exclusives, and then you have to pay for PSN on top of that, or I'm sorry, PlayStation Plus. So that's a lot of money you're spending just to play 2 games. So yeah, I don't know what they're thinking there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I think that they're used to the console mentality, because yes, console people, whether fanboys or not, will buy a console to play one game. Now, that's not going to be the case with everyone. Obviously, in your case, when you were still a console guy, you didn't want to buy a PS4 because you wanted to wait until you could list out 20 games that you wanted to play. Back in the day, granted, consoles were significantly cheaper back then, or at least I could, at the time that I wanted to get them, it was easier to get them. But I bought PlayStation I bought a PS1 primarily for Final Fantasy, and then I ended up playing a bunch of other games on it. I bought a PS2 for Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, and I didn't play much of anything else on there. I bought a PSP for Crisis Core, Dissidia, Kingdom Hearts. Didn't play much else on there. Granted, I did play quite a lot of all 3 of those. It wasn't really until like PS3 that I started buying the console with 4 more games, and then you ended up playing quite a bit more. And especially like the Vita and the PS4, I played a ton of games on both. And PS4, I ended up putting almost 700 hours into Destiny 1. Plus, the various other games I played, like, playing through Persona 5 twice so that I could get the platinum, and, I'm trying to think of, like Infamous Second Son I played through a couple times, and, various other games. So it's like, I definitely got my money's worth as far as I'm concerned with all of that, but nowadays, because of the fact that we actually have these games all coming to PC, whether they're day and date, with a lot of games in general versus the PlayStation side of things, where at best it's around 2 years. Of course, as we'll discuss later, God of War Ragnarok will be coming, and that's less than 2 years. But most games are 2 years minimum. Games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Ghost of Tsushima, God of War 2018 were all around 4 years for each of those before they came out. I can't remember if it was actually quite that long with... I think it was maybe 3 years for Zero Dawn. I'm trying to remember when Zero Dawn came to PC. I'd have to look that up. But anyway, the point is that there are some of them where it's taken longer for them to come over. And it's mostly just because they decided quite a while after that they were going to start porting stuff over. And so it's just been kind of a slow turning, set of wheels and everything. And that, now things have sped up considerably. We're getting typically right around the 2-year mark. But that's another thing, is that it eliminates the incentive a lot of times for PC gamers, because they know now that they're going to have to wait typically at the most 2 years to play a game. Now, yes, there's going to be some older titles if they come over later on that it will have been more time, like if Bloodborne ever does, although I firmly believe that when Bloodborne comes, it's going to be, they're going to do some type of remaster or even potentially sort of a remake for PS5 and for PC at the same time. Just because of the fact, or, even if it's not at the same time, well, I think it will be at the same time, because that's what they've done so far with remasters, is they've been the same time in general. But it's not going to be, or if they do things like Infamous Second Son, which came out, 10 years ago. Games like that, it's like, okay, yes, those ones took longer because it took a long time before they decided they were going to start putting these games on PC. But the most recent stuff has all been coming in around 2 years, sometimes a little bit less. And so, PC gamers, now we know that we don't have to buy the console to play the game. We might have to wait longer. When we might, we're going to have to wait a couple years. If it's an older game, assuming that they ever come over, then yes, it will be considerably longer in some cases, like with Infamous Second Son or with Bloodborne. But we also know we're going to get the best version of the game, because, we have ultra-wide support, we have unlocked frame rates, we have, you name it, all sorts of different features, plus, of course, the ability to do mods and so on and so forth. Now, of course, we also have now the PSN requirement, yay, which we'll talk about a bit more later. But in general, it's just this idea that the PC gamers are going to go out and buy a console. It's just an outdated idea. It's something that I think is going to disappear in time. They're going to realize this is not a feasible strategy. But of course, the annoying thing is that it's very clear that they don't care about actually selling the game. Because if they did, they wouldn't require PSN for any of these titles, like they had done previously. Once again, we'll get into that more later. The reality is, though, that for one, they didn't say that there's no plans. They just basically said, right now, this is what we're doing. And I get what they're trying to do, but it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. That's really what it comes down to, because it's not going to work out in their favor. It's just not. They may get 1,000 people ish that will actually go out and buy a console, but people who are really in the PC ecosystem, they're not interested. We're not interested in going out and buying a console, regardless of whether it's more powerful than our PC. Because in many cases, if it's more powerful than our PC, we can just upgrade our PC, maintain the same ecosystem, maintain all of our existing game libraries, which for some people is embarrassingly huge. there was, I think it was, gosh, it might have been that article you sent me about all the different handheld PCs. Someone said they had like 4,000 games. And I'm just like, I mean, I thought my list was embarrassing with like 300 games, but 4,000. I mean, it's like you'll never play all of those. What on earth? And you know, like as it is, I don't know that I'll ever play all my games because I know I'm not gonna just stop buying games. There's always more games I want to play, whether I play them right away or play them years after the fact, or never play them at all. I don't know, but it's like I don't want to give up my game library to go to a console where I'm not gonna have anything. And the fact is that I've realized more and more that console players are starved for content, for games to play. A lot of the times, I mean, it gets better over time, of course, but early on, a lot of times they just don't have a whole lot to play. Now, granted, at least with PS5, it's backwards compatible with PS4. But people who are like hardcore PlayStation gamers probably have already played their PS4 games. And yeah, there may be a couple games here and there, sure. And yes, it's been 4 years since, or almost 4 years since the PS5 came out. There are enough releases to where technically they're not starved for games, but the thing is that they're also in a position where more often than not, their game options are buying games that are going to cost them $70 a piece. Whereas on PC, you know, we might have years worth of a backlog, and a lot of our games we bought cheap. And we can just go through and find something that strikes our fancy, you know, whether it's something that we bought on a whim or something we wanted to play and just hadn't gotten around to. I mean, there's so many more options across the board. And of course, we can customize how we want to play it, regardless of how that happens to be. I mean, I know one guy who's part of the Married to the Games Discord, one of the community guys, and he has said that, you know, his PC is a potato, and a lot of times he'll be playing games at 20 frames per second, which is terrible. But he loves the freedom of PC, and I mean, I don't think he's exclusively a PC gamer, but he still appreciates PC, and he'll still play games on PC over consoles in some cases, especially if he can play them on Steam Deck. They said, I believe he has Steam Deck. I get some people mixed up, so it's possible I'm remembering incorrectly. But the point is, there's just so much more freedom across the board, and it's not just about having better performance and everything else, even though that's obviously much more doable because you're not locked into whatever they give you. You can customize it to make it what you want it to be. But anyway, all that being said, just the TLDL of it is that Sony's idea that PC gamers are going to buy consoles to play the sequels when they know that the sequels are going to come to PC, especially as it has been demonstrated with God of War and with Horizon, there's no reason for us to go out and buy a PS5 unless some people are just completely impatient. They only want to play certain games, and they just, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to say any more about that. I think I've said enough. All right, any other thoughts on that?
Not really. Well, actually, one last thing I'll say is, like, Sony could probably actually get away with it if they, well, actually, I mean, they can't really, but Sony is in the position, if they were in the position of, say, like Nintendo, they could get away with doing that because Nintendo pretty much has a hard stance of not porting their games over.
Right.
And that's partially why, you know, a lot of PC gamers will still go and buy a Nintendo console because of the fact that, I mean, outside of emulation, there's no way to play those games. So Nintendo is in that position where people will go and buy their console because they can't play those games anywhere else. So like, if Sony's not in that position, they've lost that leverage by starting to port their games. So there's no going back from that point.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, speaking of Sony porting games, we did get confirmation of 2 more PlayStation titles that are coming to PC, one of which we already knew about. another which has been in the Nvidia leak and was rumored for a while, but was confirmed in this PlayStation State of Play last Thursday, and that's God of War Ragnarok. So we know that that's coming. Until Dawn, which I guess it's really more of a remaster. I think they're calling it a remake, maybe, but regardless of what it is, that was confirmed a while ago. They announced, when they first announced that, they said it was coming to both. Speaking of which, I remembered who sang the song that they covered for the Until Dawn trailer. The original artist was Eagle Eye Cherry. So, anyway. But, yeah, so, all well and good. It's great. God of War Ragnarok coming over. Until Dawn, that's maybe a little more niche because it's, choose your own adventure horror game. But what's not good is that they are requiring for single-player only games a PlayStation Network account. You have to have a PlayStation Network account. You have to link it, which means this game is not available for sale in all those countries where you can't get a PlayStation Network account. So there's 180-ish countries that can't even buy the game because they can't create a PSN account. And they're forcing people who want to play single-player games that have absolutely no online component to create a PlayStation Network account and to link it. Now, I will be clear. For me, this is not a problem. For me personally, this is something I would have done anyway, because I have a PlayStation Network account. I've had one since like 2011-ish, whenever I got my PS3. Actually, no, I've had it longer than that, because it would probably be about 2008. Yes, because that's when I got my PSP. And I, bought Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, the PS1 classics of those. So, from that standpoint, for me, it's not a problem. I have a PlayStation Network account. I am down with earning trophies at the same time. I have done the optional linking for Horizon and for Spider-Man and for God of War. Actually, I can't remember if God of War had it. Ghost of Tsushima, I was going to do it anyway, because once again, I wanted to earn the trophies too, even though I'm disappointed that they don't have the trophy sound effect. But for a lot of people, this is a problem. And I am, in principle, I'm against forcing people to do it. I think it should be 100% just optional. An optional thing that people can do if they want to do it, but they shouldn't have to do it. And I have more thoughts on what I think is going to happen as a result of this. But even though you've covered a pretty good amount in your video, why don't you share for people who haven't watched your video yet?
Okay, yeah. So I'm pretty much firmly against this. I think this is Sony really just tripling down on their stance, and I feel like they're unlike with Helldivers, they're gonna get away with this. I think that there isn't gonna be enough backlash to the point that it causes them to backtrack from this, and it's a real shame because, as you said, these are single player games. There's no reason as to why these should be locked behind a requirement, and I definitely do agree that for people who already have PSN accounts like from PlayStation, it's definitely not a big deal for them. It is what it is, but like people can still go ahead and use it without having to worry about actually having to create an account. But here's something that I didn't even think about at the time I made my video, but how is this going to work? I mean, I'm also curious about this because of the fact that, I don't know how they have this set up, but at least for Ghost of Tsushima, you can't use it on Linux. You can't create an account because it only is working through Windows, which essentially means that if the same thing is going to work with these games and future PlayStation titles ported over, that essentially means that people who play on Linux cannot play these games, and people who have Steam Decks will not be able to play these games either, as a result, which makes it even worse. The fact that apart from, people who can't buy the games because it's not available in their areas, B, people who necessarily don't want to make an account, but then also C, 3 people who literally cannot play these games because the software does not support it. And Sony is shooting themselves in the foot by reducing the full potential of sales they can have by doing this. And another thing, which is also something else I didn't mention in my video, but something I thought about way later on, is what does this mean for them moving forward with putting games on GOG? The games they've put out so far, they don't require this sort of thing. Are they going to stop putting games on GOG? Or are they going to, at least only for GOG, remove that requirement for creating a PSN account? Because, essentially, if you're putting a game on GOG, the idea is that there is no requirement. There's no DRM, there's no need to connect to any sort of server anywhere. The fact that you own these games completely, these are pretty much the digital version of having a physical disc. Just because of the fact that you own these games, you can do whatever you want with them, you can back them up, whatever you want. So, does this also mean that Sony's, just gonna stop putting their games over there altogether? Which is disappointing because, even though these are some of the games I had no intention of playing, what's the game, that one zombie game?
Days Gone.
Days Gone. I bought it on GOG just to support the fact that Sony was putting out games there completely DRM free. I didn't buy it on Steam, but I bought it there. And I've bought every Sony game that released over there just because of the fact that, I want to support this. Even, Horizon, I double dipped because I was like, sure, I'm not going to really play it on GOG, but the fact that I have a DRM-free copy is great. I love that. So that's something that is concerning to me in that aspect as well. I will say, though, if games are ported over to GOG and they lose that requirement, I probably will end up, buying them there, even if it's a game that I wanted to play on Steam. For example, say, for example, they ported, and I hope this doesn't happen, but say, I also doubt they would have this because of, servers and stuff, but say they ported, Demon's Souls, it brings Demon's Souls in, we already know that's coming. Demon's Souls to PC, it requires PSN on Steam, but they put it on GOG and it didn't require that. I would buy, even though I would love to play it on Steam instead of GOG, I would buy it on GOG and play it there solely just because of the fact that that's pretty much the best way for me to play it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this whole situation I do not like.
So I do think that GOG is going to happen down the line. I think that basically it's going to be, initially they're going to have that requirement so that they can bump up their numbers, and then give it a year or two, and then they'll put it on GOG. That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong on that. It's very possible that just because of the fact that Sony is so arrogant, and because of the fact that they've been using these as a means to get people interested in their games, to where they hope that they can push people a little bit further to go ahead and we're going to buy the games even though we have to create a PSN account and everything else. So, but obviously we'll wait and see what happens with that. Now, in terms of this overall PSN requirement, I think it's stupid. As I basically mentioned before, I don't think it should be required by anyone. I think it is a cool option to have. I am all for earning PS5 trophies without having to have a PS5. I love that. That makes me happy, especially because of how salty it makes fanboys. But also because of the fact that I still I invested a good amount of time into the PlayStation ecosystem. I still have a PS1, PS2, PSP, PS3, PS Vita, and PS4. I still have all of those consoles and handhelds. I still love a lot of the games that they have. And I still plan to play especially my Vita, I'll still be playing that. PS4, maybe not, unless they never bring over like Nathan Drake collection, for example. In fact, I think the Nathan Drake collection is the only thing left, assuming the Gravity Rush games actually make their way over, that I'm like, okay, you know, I need to still have a PS4 for this. I guess there's still Infamous Second Son as well. But, like, I don't have a whole lot of incentive to boot up my PS4 anymore. Especially with God of War Ragnarok coming over. Like, the extent of how I'm going to boot up my PS4 is so that I can mod it, so I can get my saves transferred over so that I don't have to restart the game. Because with Ghost of Tsushima, it had been several years. I completed the game. I was perfectly fine restarting. God of War Ragnarok, I only got the game early 2023 and never finished it. And I would really like to just be able to continue from where I left off, not have to redo some of those boss fights, and just be able to play through completely. Now, if I do have to restart, I'll live with it. You know, I enjoyed the game enough to where I think I can deal with it, especially because being able to play at, 90 frames per second or whatever it is that I'm able to play it on my PC is going to make a drastic difference over playing at 30 on PS4. So it's like, yeah, it'd be worth it from that standpoint. But the thing is that I don't like people being forced to do this, especially people who are just completely against using creating a PlayStation account. And like I fully understand not wanting to create another login. Like I don't want to create any more logins for these consoles and so on and so forth. Like I already have too many. I gave in with Origin back in the day, which doesn't even exist anymore. Now they have a generic EA launcher. I gave in with Battle.net because I wanted to play Destiny 2 on PC, and at the time that was the only option. Of course, now it's on Steam, but it took 2 or 3 years to get over to Steam. I did it with Ubisoft Connect, really just because I wanted to play Watch Dogs 2 at launch, and I ended up, buying more games on there, like most of the Assassin's Creed games and so on. So like I don't necessarily have regrets with all that, other than the fact that it's just one more launcher, and for doing things on Steam Deck, it added some more hoops to jump through to make them playable. But I don't want to create another account. That's why I stayed away. But one of the reasons I stayed away from Epic Games, and especially now that Kingdom Hearts is coming over to Steam, coming over to PC properly, like I have really the only thing left on Epic Games that's exclusive to it that I want to play is Alan Wake 2. And that, at this point, I'm definitely holding out, because even though it was paid for by Epic, they funded the creation of that game, I still think that they're going to come down on their hands and knees to Steam and beg them to let the game be sold in Steam. And Steam will say, yep, sure, go ahead. Epic will lose a little bit of money on it, but overall they'll probably gain a lot more than they'll lose by selling it there. So whatever. But yeah, I don't think that anyone should have to create a PSN account specifically for being able to just play the games. If they want the trophies, yeah, makes sense. Create a PSN account to get trophies. If they want to play online, well, no, I'm still not cool with that. I still don't like that, even though I'm more okay with that than I am with requiring it for playing an offline game. But anyway, as I've said, for me, it's not going to be a problem to link, because I was already going to, especially if there's any chance that I could transfer my save or get the trophies that I've already earned on PS4. I don't know if it's going to be possible. They haven't said one way or the other yet. Probably won't hear anything about that until closer to launch. I haven't pre-ordered it yet, mostly because I'm waiting for a discount, so I don't really want to spend full price on it. I mean, yes, on PS4, technically I didn't actually spend any money out of pocket. I just used gift card money that was given to me by someone else. That's the only reason I bought it on PS4 was because of the gift card. Otherwise, I would have just waited for the PC version. But yeah. It's stupid. That's enough. I've said enough. More than enough. Alright, any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
Alright, so some more PlayStation-related news. PlayStation bringing more stuff over to PC. Specifically, PlayStation VR 2, which has been confirmed by Sony to be coming to PC. And it's going to... They even have it in their image playing Half-Life Alyx with the PSVR 2, which is very cool because, of course, that's one of the biggest PC VR games that a lot of people want to play. This myself included, even though I don't want to do it on VR. I don't want to get VR just for that. Basically, the only thing that's required in order to get it functioning is getting an adapter, which they sell one for $60. My understanding is that there was already a separately created adapter by someone else. It just wasn't natively supported from that standpoint, and it was more expensive. It was like $100 for that. But the problem here is that even though, number one, they have that adapter, which is reasonably priced at $60, and the price of the PSVR has dropped by about $100, meaning that overall it is cheaper than it was to just buy the PSVR by itself previously, which was $550. And now, if you get those two things combined, it's around $510 plus tax. The big problem is that they have removed some of the more unique features of the PSVR, particularly the haptic feedback, the adaptive type of triggers, from my understanding, have been removed, as well as there was some other feature that they removed, but either way, it's not a full. They're not fully putting it out. Like, they're getting to the finish line, and then they're just like collapsing and taking a nap. What are your thoughts on this?
It's definitely good that it's coming, but the problem is, why is this a half-baked product? And I mean, by and large, I guess essentially Sony lately just has been doing stuff half-baked for PC, as we've been discussing, but this one, I think there's no reason as to why it can't be supported. Considering the fact that you already have that sort of thing, like the haptic feedback in the DualSense, which now is officially supported for PC, so I don't know why they can't do it for the VR system as well. That doesn't make sense, and it's definitely weird. Sure, the price is lower than it was originally, but I still don't think that's enough of a reason to justify saying that you're also cutting features out. If you're selling the same product, I shouldn't be getting less features just because I'm playing it, somewhere else. So this definitely feel is really insulting, especially for people who have waited, because I know back when the PSVR 2 was announced, there were PC gamers were saying this could be a very viable option for people who want to play VR on PC, because it's much cheaper than a lot of VR headsets, but the quality is pretty good. So like price to performance, you're getting, if not the best, near the best value for that. So it's definitely bad that this is happening. I did notice that SpawnWave mentioned that this does seem more like a software thing, so potentially people could find a way to mod or get the features to come back for PC, which makes sense given what happened with the DualSense at first, where there were features that were actually missing for the DualSense, like haptic feedback, triggers, and before Sony actually officially supported it, people were able to get those features in. So that definitely can happen. I do see that happening down the road, but similar with the DualSense when it was first brought, when support was given for PC, I don't think that's something that we should have to rely on. I don't think we should have to rely on the community to fix something that the company should be doing. So yeah, I mean, I definitely would say don't buy this, buy something else, just because of the fact that this is not a complete product. Yeah, that's all I gotta say for this.
I probably wouldn't go quite as far as to say don't buy it, but I would say definitely, like, I can't remember when the release timing is for this, but I would say just communicate your displeasure to Sony. Let them know they need to make sure that all these features are present, because if they're not going to make them present, we're not buying it. And considering the fact that PlayStation gamers clearly haven't bought it all that much, which is understandable, I mean, VR's niche as it is, they need to understand that there are limits to what people are willing to purchase, and that they're not just going to buy something that clearly is not finished. Especially because it's not like it's... I mean, I'm sure the PlayStation fanboys are going to say, oh, it's because it's not as powerful as the PS5. And it's like, well, no, that's not it, because this other adapter was able to implement those features. And of course, obviously, that's just... it's entirely a software issue. It is something that they need to address. They need to fix it. My guess is it's something that's going to come after the thing launches. But either way, we'll see what happens with that. I'm still someone who is not super interested in VR in general. Now, if I were single, I would probably be a lot more interested in it. But my problem with using it as married with kids is just the simple fact that it completely isolates me from everyone around me in terms of not just what I'm seeing, but also what I'm hearing. And like, if there's ever an emergency situation, I do not want to be, stuck away in my VR headset, not knowing what's going on around me. With any other game, even if it's like an online game where if I stop in the middle of a fight, I'm screwed. It's like, well, but I can still see elsewhere. I can, hear, even with my headphones on. It's like, okay, I can hear that there's something going on. Take off my headphones. Okay, sorry, I died, whatever. My family's more important. But with a VR headset, it completely takes me away from everyone else, and I don't like that. So, plus there's just not enough that's like appealing to me to where I would want to be that involved in it. Like Half-Life Alyx, yes, I want to play that game because I love Half-Life, but that's not enough of a reason to buy it. Now, if let's say PlayStation decided that they were going to send me a PSVR 2 to test out on PC, I would do it. I would test it out. I would make sure I set aside a specific time that I can do it. Put some TV on for the kids or something. Play some Half-Life Alyx. Like, I would love to be able to do that. And I don't even necessarily care that much about the DualSense, like the haptic feedback stuff, because it's a gimmick. I mean, it's like, when the Switch did it initially, I was really impressed with it. And then after a while, I just kind of realized, yeah, it's just a gimmick. It's nothing that exciting. Like, it's cool that they can do this, but it's not necessarily more immersive. It's just kind of like, okay, this is just pointless. And, like the DualSense, I mean, some of the features that it has, especially on games like Horizon Forbidden West and some of the Iki Island stuff with Ghost of Tsushima, like, it'll have some really interesting stuff. Like, there's, of course, you've already, gotten your grappling hook thing. And on Iki Island, this doesn't spoil anything. There's certain areas where, in order to access them, you'll throw your grappling hook, and then so you're holding down R2, and then you hold down L2. You hold down L2 in order to pull it off. Kind of like, you've done in various other games, like Metroid Prime 3, for example. But the way it works is it's like there's a lot more tension on that left trigger as you're pulling, and it's like it's a really interesting thing that they're able to do that with this controller. But it's still a gimmick. And it's like it's completely unnecessary. It's just like, okay, we can do this. It's cool that you can do this, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm more immersed. I'm just kind of like, okay, this is an interesting feature, but it's just not necessary. Like I could play the game without this and I would be totally fine. It's a gimmick. That's all it is. And yeah, I've gone way too much on attention about that. Something I do want to mention before I forget, just because it was related to our previous topic, is that related to Square Enix's exclusivity thing, is that they've actually finally made it so that, before Octopath Traveler 1 came to Xbox but not PlayStation, Octopath Traveler 2 came to PlayStation but not Xbox. And now, 1 is coming to PlayStation, 2 is coming to Xbox. So now it's going to be complete, it's going to be everywhere, which is great. But anyway, that's a side thing. Any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right, so we have had numerous situations where there have been leaks for Nintendo Directs for PlayStation State of Plays. There was actually a big leak, which I didn't look into all of it, just prior to the PlayStation State of Play this past weekend. And it was apparently completely correct. One of the things that was leaked in there, of course, was God of War Ragnarok being revealed during the State of Play, among many other things. And it turned out it was correct. So, and this is not the first time this has happened. Obviously, there have been numerous situations where there have been leaks about a Nintendo Direct, about a PlayStation State of Play, etc. Apparently, it's been figured out where these leaks are coming from. And it turns out it's Google employees who have admin access to YouTube channels, and they can view private videos on people's channels, including Nintendo and PlayStation. I don't know if it's just one person who they've caught, or if there's multiple people. We don't know if this is something where it has actually been, this has always been the source of the leaks, or if it's that some of the leaks are coming from this, and then some leaks are just coming from inside employees of Nintendo, PlayStation, etc. It's difficult to say, but we do know that definitively, for sure, at least some of these leaks are coming specifically from the private videos on a YouTube channel. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's not something that I would have thought about before. I know that I saw that this was a theory that had been floating around, but I never would have thought about that myself, but thinking like, yeah, just some Google employees like having access to it. But it definitely makes sense once you actually think about it. And I mean, I definitely feel like this definitely won't stop leaks. Like there are still going to be leaks going around, but I feel like a lot of leaks, especially with presentations, are definitely, this is going to nip it in the bud, essentially. And I mean, for certain companies, like, it's wondering, like, is because of this, are they going to say, you know, not schedule releases going forward just because of the fact that they want to avoid this sort of thing from happening again, like with Nintendo? Or are they just going to like say, okay, we're going to still keep stuff scheduled so that way it releases on time for when we want them to, but Google, you better keep a lid on this. Like, I really want to know like how that's going to happen there. And I mean, also I'm guessing also that they caught the employee or employees who were doing this ahead of time or well enough in advance that it won't impact the Summer Games Fest. Although granted, that's live though, I think.
Yeah,
so
that
probably wouldn't impact that. But yeah, this definitely is interesting to know. Yeah, and yeah. we'll see what happens with leaks going forward. But you know, that's one case solved, I guess.
Yeah. Now I will say I do not think that they're going to stop doing the scheduling stuff ahead of time, because I know, as I'm sure you do as well, sometimes processing on YouTube just glitches out. If you don't plan it far enough ahead, you do not want to be in a situation where you're waiting the day of, when it's time for it to go up, for it to finish processing, and it just stops. And then you can't, the thing that you're supposed to have at a certain time is not ready to go because it's not uploading properly, or it's, you know, stuck in processing. Furthermore, of course, it's not nice to have, I mean, none of us really want our videos to be 360p when they initially upload, because, you know, it takes a while to process up to HD. And if you don't do it ahead of time, that's the situation you're going to be in. So it's understandable why they do it ahead of time, and I think that that's probably not going to change. Now, as for whether or not they're going to be able to stop these leaks from happening through YouTube, they might be able to lessen it, but my guess is that people will still do it. Google employees will still leak stuff out. Once they're caught, they'll get fired, of course. But I don't see any reason why they would stop. You know, like, if they think that they can get away with it, they're just going to keep doing it. And I also think that not all of these leaks are from that, because some of these leaks that we hear about, it's like months in advance. Long before these things would be up on YouTube, scheduled, ready to go, and, you know, they end up being true. So there's definitely still going to be leaks regardless. It just won't necessarily always be the presentations themselves. Those ones might be a little more tricky, but we know that, like, we should be seeing some presentations pretty soon. It's the not E3 time, since E3 no longer exists, but, you know, we have the Summer Games Fest on Friday, and we have Xbox's presentation on Sunday, and sometime this month we're going to be having Nintendo's next Direct, because Nintendo already confirmed that that's happening sometime this month. Hopefully it's next week. That's what I'm hoping for. But either way, we're going to. There's still just going to be plenty more stuff, and leaks are still going to happen, regardless. Most of them I take with a grain of salt, but there's definitely some where they are indeed legit. So.
Like Nvidia.
Yeah. Which, so far, I mean, I wonder how many games are left on that list to come out. Like, we know Demon's Souls is one of them. Final Fantasy IX Remake is one that we still haven't seen.
Yeah.
I mean, Demon's Souls, it's, you know, like, we've seen it, we don't have the official confirmation of it coming to PC, other than the fact that the original trailer said also coming to PC, which is funny, before they took it down and fixed it. But then, I mean, we have Kingdom Hearts 4, which was, you know, confirmed, just only got a teaser, and I don't know, I'd have to look through it, but there's definitely some more stuff. I think there might be a Final Fantasy Tactics remake was another one too, but I can't quite remember. Still lots of stuff, and I mean, you know, still a bunch of stuff that already has either come out or has been confirmed. And yeah, good stuff. All right, any more thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right, so as we mentioned previously, of course, we do have some upcoming presentations. One of those being the Summer Games Fest, which is coming up this Friday. Jeff Keighley has basically said temper your expectations. It's not going to be anything huge. I think it's good that he said that. Are you expecting anything in particular to be shown there?
Not offhand. I mean, only thing that can really offhand guess I could see it maybe being there would be some more Dragon Ball Sparking Neo. Like, I know we had a presentation a week or so ago. I think that maybe we could get more information there, especially with more characters and stuff like that. Something that I'm guessing or hoping to see of there actually would be Daemon X Machina, the sequel, because they had a teaser last week for the game, and I wanted to see, and I didn't know they had done that until I looked and saw this video. I said, oh cool, I want to see this. It was really just a CGI trailer, which I am disappointed by, just because it's just a small, like, 30-second clip, and it's nothing based on the game. So, and I really want to see how they're going to improve the game, just because I liked the base mechanics and gameplay of the first game, but it left me wishing there was more to do. Like, I felt like it was a very short experience for something that should have been longer, or at least have better replay value. So I'm hoping that's there. I mean, Jeff said that it was primarily going to be games that have already been announced. So I feel like that's because we already know it's coming. That, I'm hoping that shows up there. I can't really think of anything else. Like, maybe I don't know if PlayStation is going to do anything there. I mean, granted, it would be probably for stuff that we already know is coming, but I don't know. Xbox, because they're having their own presentation, I don't expect anything from them.
And he's already confirmed on Nintendo.
Yeah, Sony, Nintendo, I'm not expecting from them. I mean, just a random thought that popped into my head. Maybe Sega is going to do something, either with, because has the expansion or DLC for Persona 4 Reload come out already?
It hasn't come out, but it was already revealed, and it's coming out in August, I think.
Okay, so they're probably not going to, I mean, they might do something there, but
yeah,
they
probably not.
Probably won't. I mean, maybe they might reveal some sort of DLC for the Yakuza game that came out, Infinite Wealth. They might maybe say, like, yeah, here's DLC for the game. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can think of offhand. Because I feel like I'm really just lowering my expectations to the point where I'm like, I don't expect anything.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't really have anything I expect other than we'll probably get like another brief reminder trailer basically about Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance coming out next week, which I'm excited about. And like Elden Ring, the DLC for that.
Oh, right,
You'll have a reminder probably about that. Something that I did think of, some things that could potentially be shown would be pretty cool. Kingdom Hearts 4 could show up. I mean, since it's already been announced, it wouldn't, necessarily be big other than the fact that they could potentially show gameplay. Maybe give some idea of where they might be going with the story, but knowing what they've done with Kingdom Hearts in the past, it would probably be just like extremely vague and convoluted at the same time. But then there's something on the tip of my brain that I was thinking of that could potentially show up there. But I think most of what I'm thinking of would probably be more like Xbox Showcase. Like, there's rumors, and I think it's probably a legitimate rumor, of the next Doom game coming. Potentially even being a shadow drop for Xbox, which would be very cool. I probably will still wait on that one because I want to replay. Finish replaying 2016 and then replay Eternal on PC, because I played Eternal entirely on Switch only, with the exception of the DLC, which I only played part of. And so it's like I want to experience that in all of its glory, especially because that game is so beautifully optimized for PC. I think that's a game. Well, I don't know. I know I could get 120 frames per second for sure. Probably better than that though, because that game is just like, those games run like butter. They're so incredible on PC. I mean, the fact they run as well as they do on Steam Deck, and they run it even better on PC. I'm pretty sure that Doom 2016 I get 240 frames per second. I haven't actually tested it, but I'm probably getting at least 200 because that game just runs so well on max settings. Anyway, yeah, so I don't really have any other thoughts for Summer Games Fest. I'm hoping that there's some cool reveals there, but I'm just kind of leaving it as probably not going to see much of anything, and I just hope I'm pleasantly surprised. But I don't know how long it's supposed to be. My guess is it's probably going to be like anywhere from... Well, I don't know. Part of the problem is I'm not sure if it's going to be more on the side of the length of like Game Awards where it's really long, or if it's going to be more like 1 to 2 hours or less, for all I know. I don't know. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Oh, I just thought about something. Jeff did actually come out and say that Kingdom Hearts 4 won't be or shown it there. So he actually did. That's probably like the only game he specifically mentioned. We said, do not expect to see Kingdom Hearts at Games Fest. So,
you know, something that I don't expect to happen, but would be really cool is if Summer Games Fest revealed that Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to Xbox, and Rebirth is coming to Xbox and PC. I mean, because we know that at the very least, obviously Rebirth is going to come to PC. We just don't know exactly when. It's already past the exclusivity window, which was through the end of May for PlayStation. And we know, of course, that Square Enix has already said that they're planning to go aggressively multi-platform. So it's not impossible we could see that, and it would be something that's like not technically huge, but is also good. I mean, obviously, if it came to Xbox, there'd be so much salt, and hopefully lots of rejoicing too, and hopefully people will actually play it, because Remake is a fantastic game, and I've heard Rebirth is even better from everything people have been saying. But anyway, we can transition into the Xbox showcase, which we're not necessarily going to talk a whole lot about predictions for that. I mean, obviously, if you have anything, you're welcome to talk about it. But the main thing is that the rumor right now is that there's going to be some new hardware shown at the Xbox showcase this weekend. And at least according to, I believe it's Pure Xbox, they could actually be showing off that rumored Xbox handheld. So, of course, it could also just be that adorably all-digital console and or that new controller that's supposed to actually have like the advanced haptic feedback and stuff like that. But anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely would be interesting to see the handheld there. I'm partially, even though we have this rumor, I'm skeptical. I'm partially skeptical if we'll see it, because just judging on the fact that we had Phil Spencer like a month or 2 months ago saying that he was only just gauging interest in an Xbox handheld. So I feel like that's not enough time to have even a prototype ready, unless, of course, the poll he made was really just for PR, and they had already been developing the handheld well in advance. So if that's the case, then yeah, I do feel like it would be ready to show, or at least have something to present at the show. If not, and it really is like, and he really was just gauging interest at the time, I do doubt if a handheld is going to be shown. I mean, at most, I feel like it would just be a CGI rendering, just showing like, here's what we have down the line,
right?
Coming. But if it is available, I would be interested in seeing like what it is, what it's capable of doing, how this ties into with the Xbox ecosystem. Does it support Steam? Like that's gonna be a big thing there if it is shown. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like the other stuff might be possible. The digital Xbox console, that's feasible. I feel like that's something that's safe enough that it's believable. I definitely think that the controller is also believable as well. I think that's something that will be shown, because that is something that I feel is a very Xbox thing to do, to showcase. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. But I am interested in seeing if the handheld is going to be shown there or not. I want to see that.
Yeah, I personally think that if the handheld is shown, it would probably be at most just like some type of teaser, potentially 3D renders, that sort of thing. I doubt that they'd actually have anything beyond that, but it could very well be just basically they're confirming that this is a real thing, and maybe say, okay, these are some potential design ideas we have, that sort of thing. But either way, I mean, it would get a lot of hype if they show anything at all, or even if they just officially say this is coming. So we'll see what happens with that. I do think that we probably will see that controller, because it was leaked from their court documents with the FTC case. And yeah, it's theorized that the adorably all-digital cylinder-shaped Xbox is probably not going to be what they're actually doing. I mean, at least not in terms of the design of the console. Still be all digital, probably 2 terabytes or whatever, but it wouldn't be necessarily that cylindrical design. So
now, just to get your feedback on this, what do you think the Xbox handheld would be called, based upon like what we know about Xbox's history with naming their consoles?
Well, it's going to follow whatever theme they have for the next gen. I mean, it seems like it would have to. And my guess is that right now, if they were going to show anything about it, it would only have a code name. Similar to like how the Xbox One X was Scorpio. So, I honestly don't have a theory. Now, I think once we actually get names for the next gen consoles, however that works out, that it will follow that same naming convention. And it could very well be the Series S replacement for the next gen. So, whether or not that's actually going to happen, I don't know. They may very well do a 3-tiered thing where they have the Series X and S equivalents and then have a handheld that's separate. That's basically equal to a current Series S. But we'll have to wait and see with all that. All right. Any other thoughts? Any other stories you want to cover before we close out for the night?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Recommendations and dissuasions.
My recommendation, and I'm pretty certain I've made this recommendation before, but current events have caused me to recommend this again. That is to back up your files, back up your information, back up your data. Because there could be a point where you lose that information, or might lose the information. I forgot to mention this earlier for covering the week, but I had tried earlier this week just to set up. I have an internal drive, a separate drive apart from my boot drive for my PC, that I wanted to have set where it automatically mounts and I don't have to constantly mount it whenever I turn on my PC. And so I was trying to follow a guide to have it auto mount upon startup. I kind of messed it up, and so now it doesn't. As of right now, I cannot mount that drive at all to my PC. So that's gonna be a project I'm working on over the weekend to get that fixed. Unfortunately, pretty much everything I had on there was just my Steam library, maybe a couple of video files that I had, or like video projects that I've been working on projects before. But I'm glad that at least for the video projects, I had already backed those up and saved those, made copies of those, so that way I can have that available to reference. And I really feel like people should make backups of their files, because you don't know if something will happen on your computer or maybe even on your phone where you'll lose something that you really don't want to. So I really can't stress enough, back up what you have. And if you are able to make multiple backups, that's better, but at least one, I would say at least have that.
Always a good recommendation. So my recommendation, I'm actually doing 2 this time. One, because I haven't recommended it yet, and that is Ghost of Tsushima on PC. Just because it is really a fantastic port, and it is so worth playing. It's just such a great game. So I want to recommend that. The other thing is something that was discovered this evening. Well, I guess it was brainstormed a while ago, and we tried it out this evening. And that is taking that pizza dough recipe we put up on the YouTube channel, on Not Authentic But Delicious, and making bread from it. It actually makes great bread. My wife did that earlier today, and it was delicious. It's really good bread. It's going to make some great sandwich bread if we don't just eat it all, on its own with butter or whatever. Butter and hot honey, or just butter, or I don't know. Anyway, point is that it's really good bread. Really, really good. So that's my other recommendation.
Do you think that's something you would possibly make a video in the future of with that? Or do you think
probably at some point? I still have numerous other recipes in the pipeline, so it's not high priority at this point, but somewhere down the line, sure, because I'm sure we'll do it more.
Nice.
All right, dissuasion.
My dissuasion is, well, how should I phrase this? Do not be inconsiderate with your music around other people. And what I mean by that is, primarily, don't be blasting your music around people. And partial of that is because over this past weekend, my neighbors, they were having a party. I think it was a birthday party because I heard Happy Birthday being played. But they essentially were having music playing all night long. I remember waking up around 3 a.m. in the morning, and I hear mariachi music playing, or should I say still playing, and the music was playing at the same volume that it was at 6 p.m. And I'm just wondering, how can you do this all night long? And it was very hard to go back to sleep, especially since I was knowing that I would have to wake up to get ready to go to church in some hours later. But also additionally, I've seen, even before this point, heading to work, people playing music loudly on speakers in public, and I'm just like, have some decency for other people around you, please. Keep the volume down.
Yep. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with anything like that in a long time, but I know how that goes. It's not fun. So, well, my dissuasion, I actually didn't have anything written down, so I'm going to fake it as best as I can. I think I had something on my mind earlier, and I just can't remember off the top of my head what it was. But I guess my dissuasion would be that if you do not have, unless you have no other way to play it, I would say don't play Ghost of Tsushima on the Steam Deck. The only reason I say that, well, I should say, let me clarify. If you're going to use dynamic resolution, it's not the best experience you can have, at least in some situations. Now, I will say, most of the time that I played it on the Steam Deck, I've been pretty happy with the performance. It was just earlier today getting those sections where, because of how I had the dynamic resolution set up, the visuals got really painful. Like it was just hard to look at because it was just kind of a mess. Like it wasn't even like a Vaseline effect. It was just kind of like a splotchy almost. It made me think of like those oil paintings in terms of just the way it looked. It was, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't particularly great. So if that's your only way to play it on PC, then yes, you should play it. But if you have another way to play it, I definitely would say play it that other way before you play it on Steam Deck. Steam Deck should be like second priority, or like if you're gonna be away from home, you can't play it on your PC. You don't have a PlayStation, because even though it's not the best on PlayStation, it's still PS5. You can get 60 frames per second, so it's still good from that standpoint. It's just PC's better, but yeah, that's basically it. So, all right, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon, so that's IAMXERCON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Wednesday, as of the release of this video, but earlier today I put out a video that was primarily just me giving a little rant about the PSN situation for God of War and Until Dawn, my thoughts on that. Later on, hopefully this will come out tomorrow or yesterday as the release of this video, but after recording this, I'm going to be recording an unboxing video. I had a little haul come in today in the mail, so I'm definitely looking forward to opening that out. But yeah, that's what I have planned.
All right. Well, you can find me on YouTube at the Frozen Gamer 87, which is my main gaming channel. I just put out a comparison for Diablo 2 Resurrected between the Steam Deck OLED and the Switch OLED. Right now, it has almost no views, at least especially compared to most of my videos. Whether or not that will change, I don't know, because sometimes these things just like shoot up overnight. But right now, it only has like 47 views, which is hardly anything. However, it's still a pretty interesting comparison. It's not perfect just because the nature of Diablo has procedurally generated dungeons and that sort of thing, so not all the environments are exactly the same, and because of the way that Diablo 2 is set up, it doesn't have like opening cutscenes and everything to where you can get like a really good one-to-one comparison. And furthermore, because the way I have the settings, it's not the Steam Deck version is not optimized from my standpoint. Now, that being said, it is running 60 frames per second locked on the Steam Deck, no problems. And it runs basically the same on the Switch. I think maybe some dips here and there, but for the most part, it's a pretty consistent 60. But both have button controls, both run really well, both play well, just not necessarily an easy game. But next week I'm going to be putting out one for a comparison between Diablo 3 for those two platforms. Upcoming, I haven't decided for sure on the order of the two, but there's going to be both Sifu and then Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which I'm probably going to try to record Sifu and put that one up before I do Shin Megami Tensei, but yeah, that's probably going to have to be what it is, because Shin Megami Tensei comes out Friday the 14th. So it's basically going to have to, I mean, like, I wouldn't have enough time to do all the recording before I have to get it up the following Monday. So Sifu will be the one after Diablo 3. And then after that, we'll do Shin Megami Tensei. So, anyway. All good stuff. Should be some interesting ones. I think that the Shin Megami Tensei one will do really well. Sifu probably as well. Diablo, it's just so hard to say, because, like, I thought it might, but at least with 2 so far, the views are just really, really low. So we'll see what happens with that. Borderlands pre-sequel is doing even worse than Borderlands 2 did, which is kind of funny to me. Because Borderlands 2 had just under 1,000 views, 934, and that's, 5 months after the fact. Whereas pre-sequel has 358 after about 2-3 weeks. Anyway, yeah, so there's all that. You can also find my cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's also on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@NABDcooking. The recipe I just put out this week was for smoked salmon. And it was attempted to be salmon lox. It didn't quite turn out to be lox because I got a little more done, I guess, than it needed to be. But the flavor was just, it was so good, so good, and it's still a great recipe. Even if you don't quite get lox out of it, it's still great smoked salmon. So it's totally worth making. It's not difficult. You don't even need a smoker for it. But there's that. You can also find Not Authentic But Delicious on Facebook and on Twitter. Although I'm not really like doing anything with those apart from reposting the recipes. So that's basically all it's for, is just reposting. Then you can also find our podcast on Twitter and on Facebook. On Twitter, we are at the Orange Box Pod. I typically only get on there maybe once or twice a week, do a little bit of tweeting and that sort of thing, and use it for reposting the videos, and that's about it. But you can contact us there. You can also send us an email, theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are listening to the audio-only version, you can, of course, find us on YouTube at the Orange Box Podcast. So we do a video version every Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time. The audio-only version is every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time. So that comes out first. But the video version is slightly more involved in terms of having clips of games that we've been playing, and occasionally, clips of games we're talking about if we're talking about stuff in the news. So there's all that. And I think that is it. So, last chance. Any final thoughts before we're done for the night?
No, sir.
Alright, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, in the words of Joe Biden, true and not a shot out of pressure. Orange Box Podcast.